Welcome, listeners, to a deep dive into one of the most powerful and influential civilizations of the ancient world, the Assyrians. From humble beginnings as a city-state to ruling an empire that stretched across the ancient Near East, Assyria's story is one of military might, ruthless conquest, and cultural achievements. In this journey, we'll explore their history century by century, revealing how Assyria rose to prominence, its imperial zenith, and eventual decline. So, sit back and immerse yourself in the fascinating world of the Assyrian Empire. Let's travel back over 4,000 years, to the 21st century BCE. It was in this era that the seeds of the Assyrian civilization were planted. Founded by Puzur-Ashur I around 2025 BCE, Assyria began as a small, independent city-state centered around the city of Ashur. The early Assyrian kings, such as Elishama and Urishama, were primarily focused on trade, establishing connections with distant lands like Anatolia. Ashur served as a commercial hub, and Assyrian merchants thrived, exchanging goods like textiles and tin for silver and other valuables. It was also during this period that the Assyrians developed a form of writing known as cuneiform. The city's rulers held the title Assyr, or vice-regent of Ashur, signifying their divine mandate to rule in the name of the god Ashur. Fast forward to the 14th century BCE, when Assyria began its transformation from a city-state to a regional power. Under Ashur-uballit I, Assyria emerged as an independent force, breaking away from the influence of the Mitanni Empire. Tukulti-Ninurta I, another key ruler of this period, significantly expanded Assyrian territory, particularly into Babylon and the Zagros Mountains. This era also saw the Middle Assyrian laws, a set of legal codes that regulated everything from family relations to property rights, with punishments for crimes that were often severe. Kings during this period were not just military leaders, but also lawgivers and enforcers of divine will, as they ruled in the name of the gods. Now, let's enter the Golden Age, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, from the 10th to 7th centuries BCE. This was the period when Assyria truly dominated the ancient world. In 911 BCE, Adad-nirari II kick-started a period of revival after a time of instability, setting the stage for future kings. But it was Ashurnasirpal II, r. 883 to 859 BCE, who truly redefined the Assyrian Empire. He moved the capital to Kalhu, modern Nimrud, a city that would become a symbol of Assyrian might, filled with grand palaces and military fortresses. Shalmaneser III, who followed Ashurnasirpal, continued to expand Assyria's borders, fighting against coalitions of enemies in the Levant. His military achievements were commemorated in inscriptions that also served as propaganda, portraying Assyria's king as an invincible force. However, it was Tiglath-Pileser III, r. 745 to 727 BCE, who reformed Assyria's military and administrative systems. He built a standing army, one of the first in history, and reorganized the empire into provinces, each ruled by royal governors who reported directly to the king. This allowed Assyria to maintain tight control over its vast territories. After Tiglath-Pileser III, Assyria reached new heights under Sargon II, r. 722 to 705 BCE, who captured Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, and moved the Assyrian capital to a new city, Dur-Sharrukin, which was planned with a grandeur befitting an empire. Sennacherib, r. 705 to 681 BCE, then made his mark by moving the capital once again, this time to Nineveh, a city that would become synonymous with Assyrian power. He famously destroyed the city of Babylon after it rebelled and conducted large-scale building projects, including the famous palace of Sennacherib, which boasted monumental wall reliefs. Following Sennacherib, Esarhaddon, r. 681 to 669 BCE, managed to conquer Egypt, extending Assyria's empire into Africa. His successor, Ashurbanipal, r. 669 to 631 BCE, oversaw the creation of the famed library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, which housed thousands of cuneiform tablets, preserving much of Mesopotamian literature, including the Epic of Gilgamesh. By the 7th century BCE, however, cracks began to appear in the once invincible Assyrian Empire. After the death of Ashurbanipal, succession disputes and internal strife weakened the central authority. This internal instability was exacerbated by external threats. The Medes, Babylonians, and Scythians formed an alliance and began their assault on Assyria. In 612 BCE, the great city of Nineveh, Assyria's capital, was sacked. This event marked the beginning of the end for the Assyrian Empire. By 609 BCE, after the final defeat at the Battle of Haran, Assyria had collapsed, and its once mighty empire was no more. Assyrian rule was defined by a militarized monarchy, with the king holding absolute power over the state. Rulers were seen as the earthly representatives of the god Ashur and wielded divine authority to govern their subjects. The empire was divided into provinces, each overseen by royal-appointed governors who were responsible for collecting tribute, enforcing laws, and maintaining order. The Assyrian military was perhaps the most formidable in the ancient world. They were pioneers of siege warfare, using battering rams, ladders, and other innovations to break down enemy fortifications. Their army was highly disciplined, with a standing force that included infantry, cavalry, and chariots. The Assyrians also employed a brutal system of terror tactics to subdue rebellious populations, including mass deportations and the public display of brutal executions. Culturally, the Assyrians left behind an impressive legacy. Their kings built grand palaces, many adorned with detailed bas-reliefs that depicted military victories, royal hunts, and divine favors. These served not just as artistic expressions, but as propaganda to reinforce the king's power and divine right to rule. And so, from humble beginnings as a trading city-state, the Assyrians rose to become the undisputed rulers of the ancient Near East. Through their military might, advanced administrative systems, and cultural achievements, they left an indelible mark on history. Yet, like all great empires, Assyria eventually fell, undone by internal turmoil and external invasions. Their story, though, continues to captivate us today, offering lessons on power, governance, and the rise and fall of empires. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Assyrian history. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories from the past.